There's something almost magical about standing in front of an ancient artifact, a feeling that time itself has paused just long enough for you to glimpse a story untold. Picture this, a rusted key from a medieval castle, its teeth worn smooth by centuries of turning in locks long forgotten, or a fragment of pottery, its faded pigments hinting at a vibrant marketplace in a civilization that vanished millennia ago. These objects aren't just relics of the past, they're silent witnesses to the triumphs, tragedies, and everyday lives of people who walked this earth long before us. And today, we're about to unlock their secrets. What is it about these artifacts that pulls us in, that makes us lean closer, as if they might whisper their stories if we just listen hard enough? Perhaps it's the way they bridge the gap between our world and the distant past, offering tangible proof of lives lived, loves lost, and battles fought. Or maybe it's the mysteries they carry, enigmas that have puzzled historians, archaeologists, and treasure hunters for generations. Take the Antikythera Mechanism, for example, a 2,000-year-old device so advanced it rewrote our understanding of ancient technology. Or the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred relic shrouded in myth, said to hold divine power but lost to the sands of time. These aren't just objects, they're puzzles waiting to be solved, each with a story that challenges what we think we know about history. But here's the thing, these relics don't just belong to the past, they belong to us, to anyone who's ever felt that thrill of discovery, that itch of curiosity about the world's hidden stories. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, the untold stories behind history's most fascinating relics. We'll trace their journeys from creation to obscurity, examine the controversies that still surround them, and ask the questions that keep scholars up at night. Because every scratch, every dent, every faded inscription is a clue, and together we're about to follow them into the heart of history's greatest mysteries. So, are you ready? Let's begin. The Ark of the Covenant, just the name sends shivers down the spine, doesn't it? This isn't just some dusty artifact tucked away in a museum. According to ancient texts, this golden chest wasn't merely a religious symbol, it was a force of nature. The Bible describes it leveling mountains, toppling city walls, and even striking down those who dared to touch it without reverence. But here's the twist, for an object said to wield such divine power, it vanished without a trace centuries ago. So what really happened to it? Was it hidden away by priests to protect its secrets, destroyed by invading armies, or as some believe, carried to a land far beyond the reach of history? One of the most tantalizing theories comes from Ethiopia, where the Orthodox Church claims the Ark has been safeguarded for over 3,000 years in the sacred city of Axum. According to their tradition, it was brought there by Menelik, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, and has been guarded by a single monk ever since, a man who dedicates his entire life to watching over it, never leaving its side. Of course, no outsider has ever been allowed to see it, leaving historians to wonder, is this the real Ark or a powerful symbol of faith? Then there's the theory that it was smuggled out of Jerusalem before the Babylonian invasion, hidden deep beneath the Temple Mount in a labyrinth of tunnels still unexplored today. Modern technology could, in theory, scan for hidden chambers, but should we? Some argue that the Ark's disappearance is part of its legend, a mystery meant to endure. What makes the Ark so fascinating isn't just its potential whereabouts, it's the way it straddles the line between history and belief. For centuries, explorers have risked everything in pursuit of it, from medieval knights to Nazi archaeologists, each convinced that finding it would grant them unimaginable power. But perhaps its true power lies in the questions it forces us to ask. Can faith and archaeology ever truly reconcile? Or are some relics meant to remain just beyond our grasp, their stories woven into the fabric of the unknown? One thing's for certain, whether the Ark was real or myth, its legacy continues to captivate, challenge, and mystify us, and that in itself is a kind of magic. While the Ark of the Covenant remains shrouded in myth and faith, another ancient relic forces us to confront an entirely different kind of mystery, one not of divine power but of technological brilliance. Imagine a corroded lump of bronze encrusted with centuries of sea salt, pulled from a shipwreck off the coast of Greece in 1901. At first glance, it seemed like just another artifact from the ancient world. But then, as researchers carefully chipped away at the layers of time, they uncovered something extraordinary, a complex web of interlocking gears, precision-cut dials, and inscriptions that spoke of celestial movements. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, and it shouldn't have existed. Dating back over 2,000 years, this intricate device functioned as a cosmic calculator, predicting solar eclipses, tracking the cycles of the Olympic Games, and mapping the erratic dance of planets across the night sky, all with a level of accuracy that wouldn't be matched again until the Renaissance. Here's what's truly staggering. This wasn't just a tool for astronomers. It was a masterpiece of engineering, a miniature universe crafted in bronze where the turning of each gear mirrored the motion of the heavens. The sophistication of its design suggests an understanding of mechanics and mathematics that historians once believed impossible for its time. So how did such advanced knowledge simply disappear from history? Some speculate it was the work of Archimedes himself, the legendary inventor whose lost writings hinted at mechanical wonders. Others point to the island of Rhodes, a hub of ancient astronomy where Hipparchus, the father of trigonometry, may have influenced its creation. But perhaps the most haunting question isn't who built it, but why this technology vanished for over 1,000 years. Was it the collapse of civilizations, the loss of specialized craftsmen, or simply that such devices were so rare, so treasured, that they became casualties of war and time? What makes the Antikythera Mechanism so mesmerizing isn't just its complexity, it's the way it shatters our assumptions. We often picture the ancient world as a place of crude tools and simple innovations, but here was a machine that could simulate the cosmos. It forces us to reconsider the narrative of human progress, to wonder what other marvels might have been lost to history. And that's the real magic of relics like these. They don't just tell us about the past. They challenge us to rethink what we thought we knew. The Voynich Manuscript doesn't just defy translation, it mocks the very idea of being understood. Imagine leafing through its 240 fragile pages, each covered in flowing, looping script that looks almost familiar yet means nothing to anyone alive today. Its pages are crammed with illustrations of plants that don't exist, women bathing in emerald green pools, and zodiac wheels spinning with constellations no astronomer recognizes. Since its discovery in 1912, this book has been called the world's most unreadable text, a puzzle so stubborn that even wartime codebreakers and artificial intelligence have thrown up their hands in defeat. So what makes this peculiar relic so resistant to decoding? Some argue it's an elaborate Renaissance-era prank, crafted to dupe a wealthy patron into paying for a book of nonsense. After all, the script follows patterns, repeated symbols, spacing that mimics real language, but no one has ever matched it to a known alphabet or cipher. Others believe it's a lost language, perhaps a constructed one like Esperanto, but centuries older. Then there's the wilder theory that it's a visual shorthand for alchemical recipes, with the plants representing chemical processes and the star charts encoding secret formulas. But here's the twist: carbon dating places the manuscript's vellum between 1404 and 1438, yet its contents feel utterly alien to anything from that era. What's most fascinating isn't just the manuscript's resistance to interpretation, but the way it reflects our obsession with solving the unsolvable. Historians have tried everything from frequency analysis to machine learning, yet the text remains as opaque as the day it was found. In 2019, a researcher claimed to have cracked a single line, suggesting it was a mix of Hebrew and Arabic, but the theory collapsed under scrutiny. Even NASA has taken a crack at it with no luck. Maybe that's the point. Some relics aren't meant to be decoded. They're meant to remind us that the past doesn't always surrender its secrets. The Voynich Manuscript isn't just a book. It's a mirror showing us how far we'll go to find answers, even when none may exist. The Holy Grail, just the mention of it conjures images of knights in shining armor, perilous quests, and a sacred cup said to hold the power of immortality. But here's the thing, the Grail isn't just one story. It's layers of myth, religion, and human longing woven together over centuries. In Arthurian legend, it's the divine vessel pursued by Sir Galahad, a symbol of purity and unattainable perfection. In Christian tradition, it's the cup used by Christ at the Last Supper, later catching his blood at the crucifixion, a relic of unimaginable holiness. Yet for all the tales, no one can even agree on what it looked like. Was it a simple wooden chalice, a golden goblet encrusted with jewels, or something far stranger like a stone or even a book? The search for the Grail has driven men to madness and kingdoms to ruin. Medieval Europe was obsessed with it, from the whispered rumors of the Knights Templar guarding its secret to the grand romances of Chrétien de Troyes, where the Grail first appeared as a mystical, floating light. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the Grail takes on new life not in dusty manuscripts but in pop culture. Indiana Jones famously raced Nazis to find it, Spielberg's version hidden in an unassuming cave guarded by an ageless knight. But why does this story endure? Because the Grail isn't just about finding something. It's about what we project onto it, the desire for eternal life, divine connection, or even the secrets of the universe. Historians have tossed around theories for generations. Some argue the Grail was never a physical object at all, but a metaphor for spiritual enlightenment, a concept borrowed from older traditions, like the Celtic cauldrons of rebirth or Gnostic teachings about hidden knowledge. Others point to real artifacts, like the emerald green cup in Valencia's cathedral, said to have been carried to Spain by Saint Peter himself. Then there's the wild card, the idea that Grail comes from the Old French sangrail, meaning royal blood, sparking conspiracy theories about secret bloodlines of Christ. What's fascinating isn't just the Grail's many faces, it's how each generation reinvents it to fit their deepest questions. For medieval knights, it was a test of faith. For Victorian poets, a symbol of lost idealism. Today, it's a mirror for our own obsessions with secrets and immortality. Maybe that's the real magic of the Grail. It doesn't matter if it's real or not. What matters is that, after all these centuries, we still can't stop looking. The crystal skulls, just saying those words feels like stepping into the opening scene of an Indiana Jones movie. These hauntingly beautiful carvings, with their hollow eyes and polished quartz surfaces, seem to stare straight through time itself. Some claim they're relics of lost Mesoamerican civilizations, crafted by Aztec or Maya artisans with tools we can't even comprehend. Others insist they're nothing more than clever forgeries, whipped up in European workshops during the 1800s to feed a Victorian obsession with the exotic. So which is it, ancient artistry or an elaborate con? And why, after all these years, do these skulls still spark such fierce debate? Let's start with the most famous of them all, the Mitchell-Hedges skull. Discovered in 1924 by adventurer F.A. Mitchell-Hedges, or so the story goes, this skull was allegedly found beneath a Mayan pyramid in Belize, perfectly carved from a single block of clear quartz, with a detachable jawbone that moves as smoothly as a modern hinge. Proponents say its precision defies explanation, with no visible tool marks or signs of modern machinery. But here's where things get murky. No records of the skull exist before Mitchell-Hedges displayed it, and his own daughter later admitted they might have purchased it at a London auction. Even more damning, recent scans revealed microscopic traces of rotary tools technology that didn't exist in pre-Columbian America. Then there's the Paris skull and the British Museum skull, both traced back to the same shadowy 19th century art dealer, Eugene Boban. A man with a knack for discovering artifacts just as European collectors developed a taste for them. Skeptics point out that quartz of this quality was nearly impossible to source in ancient Mesoamerica, yet abundant in, you guessed it, 19th century Europe. But here's the twist: even if some skulls are fakes, their cultural impact is undeniably real. Indigenous groups today, from the Maya to the Navajo, revere them as sacred objects regardless of their origins. What's truly fascinating isn't just the question of authenticity, it's what the skulls reveal about our own obsession with the past. We want to believe in lost civilizations wielding impossible technology, in artifacts that hold untold power. The crystal skulls, whether ancient or modern, tap into that longing. They're a Rorschach test. Archaeologists see cautionary tales of forgery, spiritualists see vessels of energy and pop culture. Well, it just sees a darn good story. Maybe that's the real magic of these enigmatic objects, not where they came from, but what they make us wonder about ourselves. The Shroud of Turin is more than just a piece of ancient fabric. It's a riddle wrapped in faith and science, a relic that has sparked arguments, veneration, and scientific scrutiny for centuries. At first glance, it appears to be a simple linen cloth, measuring about 14 feet long and 3.5 feet wide. But look closer, and the faint, ghostly imprint of a man's body emerges front and back, as if someone had been wrapped in it from head to toe. The figure bears wounds consistent with crucifixion, a pierced side, nail marks in the wrists and feet, even what looks like lacerations from a crown of thorns. To millions of believers, this isn't just an image, it's the literal burial shroud of Jesus Christ, a divine snapshot of the moment of resurrection. But how could such an image form? And if it's real, why does science keep casting doubt on its origins? The controversy begins with carbon dating. In 1988, 3 independent labs tested small samples of the shroud and concluded it dated back to somewhere between 1260 and 1390, squarely in the medieval period. Case closed, right? Not so fast. Critics immediately raised red flags. The sample tested came from a corner of the cloth that might have been repaired or contaminated over centuries of handling. Some researchers point to pollen grains found on the shroud that match plants native to Jerusalem, not medieval Europe. Then there's the image itself. No one has been able to fully replicate how it was made. It's not painted, dyed, or scorched. Instead, the discoloration only penetrates the outermost fibers of the linen, as if the image was somehow projected onto the cloth. Even modern laser technology struggles to mimic its subtle, three-dimensional depth. Here's where things get even stranger. In 2013, scientists applied advanced spectroscopy techniques and detected traces of blood, real human blood, on the shroud. The pattern suggests it seeped from wounds before the image formed, as if the body left its mark and then vanished. Some theorists propose a rare chemical reaction, perhaps triggered by a burst of energy at the moment of resurrection. Others argue it's the work of a medieval artist using techniques now lost to time. But the most haunting question remains: if it's a forgery, why would a 14th century craftsman go to such lengths to create something no one at the time could even properly see? The shroud's full image only becomes clear in photographic negatives, a technology invented centuries later. What makes the Shroud of Turin so compelling isn't just the debate over its authenticity, it's what that debate says about us. For believers, it's tangible proof of the divine. For skeptics, it's a testament to human ingenuity and the power of belief. And for scientists, it's a puzzle that refuses to be solved, a reminder that some mysteries straddle the line between the measurable and the miraculous. Whether it's the burial cloth of Christ or an elaborate medieval hoax, one thing's certain: this relic doesn't just bear an image. It holds up a mirror to our deepest questions about faith, history, and the limits of what we think we know. The Nazca Lines sprawl across Peru's arid plains like a colossal art gallery meant for the heavens. From the ground, they're nothing more than shallow grooves scratched into the rust-colored earth, but from the air, they transform into staggering depictions of hummingbirds, spiders, monkeys, and spirals so precise they could have been drawn with a compass. Some stretch over 1,200 feet long, their lines perfectly straight even across miles of uneven terrain. The question isn't just how the Nazca people crafted these marvels around 2,000 years ago, it's why. What compelled them to create art so vast it could only be fully appreciated by someone or something flying high above? One theory suggests the lines were a celestial roadmap, their shapes and pathways aligned with stars, solstices, and seasonal rains. The hummingbird, for instance, might mirror constellations visible during planting season, while the spider could symbolize a deity linked to water precious in this parched landscape. Archaeologists have found wooden posts and cord fragments near some glyphs, hinting at simple but ingenious surveying techniques. Imagine teams of Nazca artisans using ropes and stakes to plot out these designs, scaling them up with nothing but patience and precision. But here's the twist. If the lines were meant as messages to the gods, why would they depict creatures like monkeys, which never lived in this desert? Some argue these were spiritual symbols representing distant realms or mythological beings. Then there's the fringe theory that's captured imaginations for decades: alien runways. Proponents point to the geometric grids and trapezoids, suggesting they're landing strips for extraterrestrial visitors. It's a tantalizing idea, but let's be clear, there's zero evidence to support it. What is fascinating, though, is how the Nazca culture thrived here despite the harsh environment. They built underground aqueducts to channel water from the Andes, creating oasis-like pockets in the desert. Could the lines have been part of a ritual to invoke life-giving rains, or perhaps a way to unite scattered communities under a shared symbolic language? What makes the Nazca Lines so mesmerizing isn't just their scale or mystery, it's the way they defy singular explanation. They're a testament to human ingenuity, a reminder that ancient people saw the world through lenses we're still trying to decipher. Whether they were prayers etched into the earth, astronomical charts, or something else entirely, one thing's certain: these desert drawings challenge us to look beyond the obvious and wonder what other secrets the past might be hiding in plain sight. The Baghdad Battery sits quietly in a museum display, looking like nothing more than an old clay jar until you peer inside. There, nestled within its unassuming exterior, lies a copper cylinder wrapped around an iron rod, all traces of an acidic substance clinging to the metal. It's a simple arrangement, but one that has sparked a debate fiercer than a desert sun. Could this 2,000-year-old artifact actually be proof of ancient electricity? Discovered in 1936 near Baghdad, this peculiar relic dates back to the Parthian Empire, a civilization known for its advances in metallurgy and trade. At first glance, it resembles a storage vessel, maybe for scrolls or spices, but here's where things get intriguing. When filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or grape juice, the jar generates a small electrical charge, enough to produce a faint voltage. Replicas have proven it works, leading some researchers to wonder, was this an early battery? Imagine the possibilities. Electroplating jewelry, medicinal shocks, or even religious rituals where a jolt of divine power stunned worshippers into awe. Skeptics, of course, have their doubts. They argue the jar's design could just as easily hold sacred scrolls, with the metal components serving as protective casings. No wires or conductors have ever been found alongside it, and without contemporary records mentioning electricity, the theory leans heavily on speculation. But here's the counterpoint: absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Ancient inventors might not have understood the science behind what they'd stumbled upon, using it purely for its observable effects. After all, the Greeks toyed with static electricity using amber rods, though they never harnessed it systematically. What's truly fascinating isn't just whether the Baghdad Battery worked, it's how the mere possibility forces us to rethink the arc of innovation. We're taught that electricity began with Franklin's kite or Volta's piles, but what if earlier cultures dabbled in it without leaving a paper trail? The Parthians were masterful engineers, building the first known batteries, or at least objects that functioned as them by accident. Either way, this humble jar reminds us that history isn't a straight line of progress. Sometimes it's a tangled web of forgotten experiments waiting for us to rediscover and reinterpret their sparks of genius. The Phaistos Disc sits in the shadows of the Heraclean Museum, its secrets locked behind a spiral of strange symbols pressed into clay over 4,000 years ago. Found in 1908 amid the ruins of a Minoan palace on Crete, this palm-sized artifact is unlike anything else from the ancient world, not just for its age, but for the sheer mystery of its purpose. 45 unique symbols win their way across both sides of the disc, from running figures and helmeted heads to birds, fish, and abstract shapes resembling tools or weapons. But here's what really baffles scholars. Every symbol was stamped into the clay with individual seals, making this the earliest known example of movable type printing, centuries before the technique appeared in China or Europe. So why was this revolutionary technology seemingly abandoned for millennia? And what message was so important that someone went to such extraordinary lengths to preserve it? Some believe the disc holds a sacred hymn, its spiraling text meant to be read aloud during rituals honoring the gods of Bronze Age Crete. Others argue it's a legal decree or a ledger, with the symbols representing syllables of the lost Minoan language. Then there's the wildcard theory that it's not writing at all, but a board game's rulebook with the symbols marking moves or scores. The problem, without a single other example of this script ever found, there's nothing to compare it to. No bilingual inscription, no Rosetta Stone to crack the code. Even the direction of reading is up for debate. Do the spirals turn inward or outward? Should the symbols be read left to right or right to left? What makes the Phaistos Disc so mesmerizing isn't just the enigma of its text, it's the lingering question of why such an advanced artifact appears to exist in isolation. The Minoans were masterful record keepers, using linear and hieroglyphic scripts for administrative documents. Yet this disc stands alone, its symbols echoing nothing else in their culture. Was it a failed experiment in communication, a foreign import, or perhaps the work of a lone genius whose innovation was lost to time? Theories have swung from scholarly to sensational. In the 1960s, a linguist claimed to decode it as a prayer to a mother goddess, linking symbols to later Greek syllables. More recently, computer algorithms have tried pattern analysis only to hit dead ends. Even the disc's authenticity has been questioned, though thermoluminescence dating confirms its ancient origins. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that we'll never truly understand it. Some relics don't yield their secrets easily. They exist to remind us that the past isn't a puzzle to be solved, but a conversation, one where we're still learning how to listen. The Spear of Destiny isn't just a weapon, it's a story forged in blood, prophecy, and the unshakable belief that whoever holds it holds the fate of empires. According to tradition, this is the very spear that pierced Christ's side at the crucifixion, an object so charged with divine significance that it's said to grant its bearer invincibility in battle. But here's the twist: its power doesn't come from magic or miracles. It comes from the sheer force of human conviction. From the Holy Roman Emperors to Napoleon, from Charlemagne to Adolf Hitler, history's most ambitious conquerors have sought it, not just as a relic, but as a psychological weapon, a symbol that could rally armies and crush enemies with the weight of destiny itself. Take Charlemagne, for example. The legendary king carried the spear through 47 victories, convinced it was the source of his unstoppable rise. But then, the story goes, he dropped it and died that very day. Centuries later, Napoleon, hungry for its legendary power, demanded it be brought to him after conquering Vienna. Yet before it could reach his hands, the Habsburgs smuggled it away, and Napoleon's empire soon crumbled. Coincidence, perhaps, but when Hitler stood transfixed before the spear in Vienna's Hofburg Palace in 1938, he saw more than an artifact, he saw validation. The Nazi leader believed so fervently in its curse that he ordered it seized, displaying it in Nuremberg as a talisman of Aryan supremacy. Yet, like all who clung to it before him, his reign ended in ruin. So what's really going on here? Is the spear cursed, or is its so-called power just a self-fulfilling prophecy? Historians point out that the artifact's timeline is murky at best. The spearhead displayed today likely dates to the 7th or 8th century, far too young to be the original, but that hardly matters. What makes the Spear of Destiny fascinating isn't its authenticity, it's the way it reveals how belief can shape reality. For rulers desperate to legitimize their power, owning the spear wasn't about divine favor, it was about theater. It sent a message: my rule is ordained by history itself. And that's the real lesson of this relic. It doesn't wield power, it reflects it. The Spear of Destiny is a mirror, showing us how easily symbols can become weapons in the hands of those who know how to wield myth. Whether it's a medieval king or a modern dictator, the message is the same. Sometimes the most dangerous force in history isn't a blade or a curse, it's the stories we're willing to believe. The Copper Scroll doesn't just list treasures, it taunts us with them. Unlike the other Dead Sea Scrolls, written on fragile parchment and filled with religious texts, this one is etched into thin sheets of copper, as if the creators wanted these words to outlast time itself. And what words they are: 64 locations, each hiding unimaginable wealth: gold, silver, priestly garments, even sacred oils, all buried across the Judean wilderness. The amounts are staggering: over 4,600 talents of silver, nearly 1,300 talents of gold. To put that in perspective, 1 talent alone could weigh as much as 75 pounds. That's enough to make even the most skeptical historian pause and wonder, was this a real inventory of temple treasures hidden before the Roman siege of Jerusalem? Or something far more mysterious? What sets the Copper Scroll apart isn't just its material or its contents, it's the way it reads like a riddle. The descriptions are maddeningly vague. In the ruin that is in the valley of Acca, under the steps leading to the east, 40 cubits, a chest of silver and its vessels. No landmarks, no maps, just cryptic clues that assume the reader already knows where to look. Some scholars argue this was intentional, a coded message meant only for initiates of a secretive sect, possibly the Essenes, who hid the scrolls. Others believe it's pure allegory, a symbolic representation of spiritual wealth rather than physical treasure. After all, why would a religious group painstakingly engrave directions to loot on copper, only to leave it in a cave where no one could act on it? Then there's the practical problem. Despite decades of searching, not a single item from the scroll has ever been found. Modern expeditions armed with ground-penetrating radar and satellite imagery have combed every valley and ruin mentioned, yet the Earth refuses to give up its secrets. Some treasure hunters point to the Qumran Plateau where the scroll was discovered, suggesting the treasures were looted centuries ago or destroyed by earthquakes. Others propose the scroll was a decoy meant to distract Roman forces while the real treasures were smuggled away. But here's the twist: the scroll's language doesn't match the other Dead Sea Scrolls. Its Hebrew is rougher, more colloquial, with odd spelling errors that suggest it wasn't written by the same scribes. Was it a later addition, a forgery? Or proof that the treasure was real, but so well hidden that even the original custodians lost track? What makes the Copper Scroll so captivating isn't just the treasure, it's the questions it forces us to confront. If it's a hoax, why go to the trouble of engraving it on copper, a material far more durable than parchment? If it's real, why has every search failed? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between. The scroll might not lead to chests of gold, but to something even more valuable, a glimpse into the desperation of a people on the brink of annihilation, hiding not just wealth but hope. After all, what greater treasure is there than the belief that something precious might still remain, waiting to be found? Deep in the mountains of China's Bayan Karaula region, a discovery was made in 1938 that would spark one of history's most enduring archaeological mysteries. A team of researchers led by Dr. Kai Pu Te stumbled upon a series of caves, their walls adorned with strange carvings of beings with elongated heads and wide, haunting eyes. But it was what they found on the cave floor that would ignite decades of controversy. Hundreds of flat stone discs, each roughly a foot in diameter, with a perfect hole in the center, like ancient vinyl records etched with a spiral groove of tiny, indecipherable symbols. These were the Dropa Stones, and according to some, they weren't just artifacts, they were evidence of an otherworldly visitation. The story, as it's often told, reads like science fiction. The discs, allegedly dated back 12,000 years, were said to contain the account of a spacecraft crash landing in the remote mountains. The survivors, described as the Dropa people, carved their tragic tale into the stones, speaking of their damaged ship, their struggle to survive, and their eventual integration with local tribes. In the 1960s, a Russian researcher claimed to have translated portions of the text, describing beings from a distant star system. It's a narrative that's captivated UFO enthusiasts and conspiracy theorists for generations. But here's where things get complicated. No credible scholar has ever verified these translations, and the original discs have vanished from the public record, if they ever existed at all. Mainstream archaeology dismisses the Dropa Stones as either a hoax or a case of mistaken identity. Some experts suggest they might be nothing more than ceremonial by discs, common in ancient Chinese cultures as symbols of heaven. Others point to the lack of physical evidence, no photographs of the cave carvings, no verifiable records of the disc's chemical composition, and no trace of the so-called Dropa people in the region's genetic history. Even Dr. Kai Pu Te's own accounts are murky, with conflicting reports about whether he ever mentioned extraterrestrials at all. Yet the legend persists, and that's what makes the Dropa Stones so fascinating. They're a perfect example of how relics can take on lives of their own when facts are scarce and imagination runs wild. In an age where we're used to having answers at our fingertips, the Dropa Stones remind us that some mysteries thrive in the gaps of our knowledge. Whether they're ancient alien artifacts, misidentified cultural objects, or an elaborate myth, one thing's certain: they've become more than just stones. They're a mirror reflecting our endless fascination with the idea that we're not alone, and that somewhere hidden in the shadows of history there might be proof. Standing before the towering walls of Sacsayhuaman feels like confronting a riddle carved in stone. These massive limestone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, are stacked in zigzagging tiers high above the city of Cusco, fitting together with a precision that borders on the impossible. The joints between them are so seamless, so unnervingly exact, that even after 5 centuries of earthquakes and weathering, you can't slip a sheet of paper between them. And here's what's truly baffling. The Inca built this fortress in the 15th century without the wheel, without iron tools, and without mortar. So how did they do it? One theory points to their mastery of geology. The Inca weren't just stoneworkers, they were stone listeners. They likely sought out naturally fissured rock, using heat and sudden cooling to split precise slabs, then painstakingly shaped them with harder stones like diorite. But that doesn't fully explain the curves, the way some blocks bend and interlock like puzzle pieces. Modern engineers have tried replicating the technique, only to find that achieving such perfection free hand would require inhuman patience and skill. Then there's the mystery of transportation. How did they move these gargantuan stones from quarries miles away? Some suggest log rollers and ramps, while local legends speak of a magical plant juice that softened the stone, letting workers mold it like clay, a myth that, oddly enough, finds echoes in Inca oral histories. What's even more intriguing is Sacsayhuaman's purpose. Was it a fortress, as the Spanish believed, a ceremonial site aligned with solstice sunrises, or something else entirely? The wall's zigzag pattern mirrors lightning, a sacred symbol of the god Elapa, and their foundation is built atop subterranean tunnels rumored to hold lost treasures. But perhaps the real treasure is the structure itself, a lesson in resilience. When conquistadors tried dismantling it, they gave up after realizing the stones were too perfectly wedged to remove. Sacsayhuaman doesn't just defy explanation, it challenges our assumptions about ancient technology. In a world obsessed with progress, these walls whisper a humbling truth. Some secrets of the past remain just out of reach, not because we lack answers, but because we're still learning how to ask the right questions. The London hammer sits in a small Texas museum, looking utterly ordinary until you hear its backstory. Discovered in 1936 near the town of London, Texas, this simple tool was found embedded in a chunk of limestone dated to over 400 million years old. That's a problem because the hammer itself, it's unmistakably modern. Its wooden handle is partially petrified, its iron head shows signs of industrial forging, and its design matches 19th century American tools. So how does a relatively new hammer end up sealed inside rock that predates dinosaurs by hundreds of millions of years? The answer depends on who you ask and how willing you are to entertain the impossible. Skeptics have a straightforward explanation. The hammer isn't actually ancient. They argue it was simply dropped or discarded near a mineral-rich stream, where dissolved limestone seeped around it over decades, creating the illusion of age. It's a phenomenon known as concretion, where minerals cement around objects, forming rock-like shells. But here's where things get interesting. Tests in the 1980s revealed the hammer's handle had indeed begun fossilizing, and its iron contained unusual purity, lacking the sulfur typical of modern smelting. Proponents of the out-of-place artifact theory pounced. Could this be evidence of a lost civilization with advanced metallurgy, or even a time traveler's misplaced tool? The debate taps into a bigger question. How do we handle anomalies that defy conventional timelines? Mainstream science often dismisses such finds as misdated or misidentified, and for good reason. Most have mundane explanations, but the London hammer lingers because it challenges our assumptions about how quickly objects can fossilize, and what might be possible in Earth's deep past. After all, if a modern hammer can appear ancient through natural processes, could the reverse also be true? Might some modern artifacts in the archaeological record actually be relics of forgotten technologies? What makes the London hammer so compelling isn't just its mystery, it's what it reveals about our relationship with the unknown. We're quick to label things as hoaxes or mistakes when they don't fit the narrative. But sometimes the most valuable discoveries aren't the ones that give us answers. They're the ones that force us to ask better questions. The Maine Penny might look like just another weathered coin, but this tiny piece of silver carries a weight far beyond its size. Discovered in 1957 at a Native American settlement in Maine, this artifact is no ordinary currency. It's a Norse coin, minted between 1065 and 1080 during the reign of King Olafkir of Norway. That's over 400 years before Columbus set sail. So how did a Viking coin end up buried in the soil of North America? And does it rewrite the story of transatlantic contact, or is there a simpler explanation? The coin's discovery at the Nazca Point archaeological site sent shockwaves through the historical community. Found among thousands of other artifacts, it stood out like a ghost from another time. Proponents of pre-Columbian contact seized on it as proof that Vikings, or at least their trade goods reached further south than Newfoundland's Elance Aux Meadows, the only confirmed Norse settlement in North America. But here's where things get complicated. The coin was found alone, with no other Viking artifacts nearby. No weapons, no tools, not even a second coin. If Norse traders had visited Maine, why leave behind just one piece of silver? This is where the trade network theory comes in. Some archaeologists suggest the coin didn't arrive via Viking hands at all, but through an intricate web of indigenous trade routes stretching from the Arctic to the eastern woodlands. The Thule people, ancestors of the Inuit, were known to interact with Norse settlers in Greenland and Labrador. Could a single coin have traveled south through generations of bartering, eventually ending up in Maine as a curiosity or talisman? It wouldn't be the first time an exotic object became a treasured item far from its origin. Then there's the skeptic's view. The coin might be a modern intrusion, accidentally dropped during excavations or even planted as a hoax. After all, the site was disturbed by amateur diggers before professional archaeologists arrived. But scientific analysis complicates that theory. The coin's patina matches other artifacts from the same soil layer, suggesting it had been there for centuries. And while it's possible a collector's item could have been lost at the site, the odds of it blending so seamlessly into an ancient context are slim. What makes the Maine Penny so compelling isn't just the question of authenticity, it's what the debate reveals about how history gets written. A single artifact can challenge entire narratives, forcing us to reconsider the connections between distant cultures. Whether it's proof of Vikings in Maine or just a fascinating outlier, this coin reminds us that history isn't set in stone. Sometimes the smallest relics carry the biggest surprises. The Codex Gigas isn't just a book, it's a behemoth, weighing in at nearly 165 pounds and stretching over 3 feet tall. This medieval manuscript is so massive, it's said to have required the skins of at least 160 donkeys to create its vellum pages. But size isn't what earned it the nickname, the Devil's Bible. That honor goes to the haunting, full-page illustration of Satan himself, grinning from ear to ear, his clawed hands outstretched as if ready to leap off the parchment. And then there's the legend. The one that claims this entire tome was penned by a single monk in a single night, with a little help from the Prince of Darkness. According to the story, the monk was sentenced to be walled up alive for breaking his vows. Desperate to avoid this gruesome fate, he promised to create a work that would glorify his monastery forever, a book containing all human knowledge from the Bible to medical texts to historical records. But as the night wore on and the task proved impossible, he made a bargain, his soul for the devil's assistance. By dawn, the book was complete, and tucked neatly into its pages was that infamous portrait, a chilling signature from its otherworldly co-author. Of course, historians have a more mundane but no less fascinating explanation. The Codex Gigas was likely crafted by a team of scribes over decades, its contents painstakingly copied from older sources. The Devil's Portrait, just a standard medieval depiction of evil, meant to warn readers of sin's consequences, but here's where things get interesting. Analysis of the handwriting suggests a single scribe did write the bulk of the text, their script growing increasingly shaky over time, as if the work was done under immense strain or in isolation. Was this the doomed monk of legend, or simply a devoted scholar pushing their limits? What makes the Codex Gigas so mesmerizing isn't just its eerie artwork or the myth behind it, it's how the two have become inseparable. Over centuries, the object and its story have fused, each feeding the other's mystery. The book's very existence feels like a dare. Is it a sacred text or a cursed artifact? A monument to faith or a trophy of damnation? Even its survival is a miracle of sorts. It's been plundered by invading armies, nearly destroyed by fire, and hidden away in castle vaults. Yet it endures as if the devil's bargain included immortality. Today, the Codex Gigas sits in Sweden's National Library, its pages digitized for all to see, but no amount of modern scrutiny can strip away its aura. Whether you believe the legend or not, one thing's certain: this isn't just a book, it's a mirror reflecting our endless fascination with the line between devotion and desperation, between human ambition and the shadows that might just help us achieve it. The Emerald Tablet might be small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, but its influence stretches across centuries, continents, and the very fabric of human curiosity. Legend claims it was carved from a single block of emerald, its surface etched with cryptic phrases that promise nothing less than the secrets of the universe, the key to transmuting base metals into gold, the elixir of eternal life, the so-called Philosopher's Stone. But here's the twist: no one knows for sure if this legendary tablet ever existed in physical form at all. The earliest references to it appear in Arabic texts from the 8th century, describing a relic supposedly discovered in the clutches of Hermes Trismegistus, the mythical fusion of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. Yet despite its elusive origins, the tablet's words have been copied, translated, and obsessed over by everyone from medieval alchemists to Isaac Newton himself. What makes this relic so captivating isn't just its purported powers, it's the way its language dances between the literal and the symbolic. Take its most famous line, "As above, so below." To some, this was a recipe for alchemical transformation, a literal instruction for blending celestial and earthly elements. To others, it was a spiritual metaphor, a reminder that the microcosm of the human soul mirrors the macrocosm of the divine. Even the tablet's description of the one thing that could accomplish the miracle of the one thing reads like a riddle wrapped in an enigma. Was it referring to a physical substance, a state of enlightenment, or something else entirely? Theories about the tablet's true meaning have spiraled into the realms of the extraordinary. Some argue it encodes ancient Egyptian metallurgical techniques, secrets guarded by priest scientists. Others see parallels to quantum physics, where the observer and the observed are inextricably linked. Then there's the darker interpretation that the tablet's knowledge was deliberately obscured, its truths accessible only to initiates who'd proven their worth. This idea fueled the rise of secret societies like the Rosicrucians, who believed the tablet held the blueprint for spiritual and material perfection. But perhaps the most fascinating thing about the Emerald Tablet isn't what it says, it's what it reveals about us. For over 1,000 years, humans have projected their deepest desires onto its words, seeing in them whatever they long to find: scientific breakthroughs, mystical revelations, or even a shortcut to unimaginable wealth. In that sense, the tablet isn't just a relic of alchemy. It's a mirror reflecting humanity's unshakable belief that the universe's greatest secrets are hidden just beneath the surface, waiting for the right mind to uncover them. And whether those secrets are real or imagined, the pursuit of them has changed history itself. Deep in the humid jungles of Costa Rica, scattered across riverbeds and hilltops, lie some of the most perplexing artifacts ever uncovered: the stone spheres of Decode. Ranging from the size of a melon to over 6 feet in diameter, these orbs are so unnervingly perfect they seem almost machine-made. Yet they were crafted over 1,000 years ago by a culture that left no written records, no blueprints, and no explanation for why they went to such extraordinary lengths to shape granite and gabbro into flawless spheres. The first modern encounter with these stones reads like something out of an adventure novel. In the 1930s, workers clearing land for banana plantations stumbled upon them half buried in the earth. At first, they assumed the spheres must be hollow, hiding treasure inside, so they blasted some apart with dynamite, only to find solid rock. What they destroyed were masterpieces of precision, some with surfaces so smooth they deviate by less than 2 millimeters from perfect roundness. How did a pre-Columbian society achieve such accuracy without metal tools or measuring devices? archaeologists suspect the artisans used a combination of heat, water, and meticulous pecking with stone hammers, gradually shaping each sphere over years of painstaking labor. But here's the real mystery: why some theories point to the stars. A handful of spheres have been found aligned in patterns that mirror constellations, suggesting they might have served as celestial calendars or markers for solstices. Others believe they were status symbols, the ancient equivalent of luxury goods. The bigger the sphere, the more powerful its owner. Then there's the spiritual angle. Local legends speak of the spheres as gifts from the gods, or even as relics from the lost city of Atlantis. But the most tantalizing clue might be their placement. Many were arranged in groups near settlements, often in geometric formations that hint at a deeper purpose, perhaps as boundary markers, ritual spaces, or even a form of prehistoric public art. What makes these stones so captivating isn't just their precision, it's what they represent. They're a rare glimpse into a culture that valued symmetry and planning on a grand scale, yet left behind almost no other traces of their daily lives. Unlike the pyramids or Stonehenge, these aren't monuments to gods or kings. They're quiet mysteries scattered like breadcrumbs across the landscape, inviting us to wonder, what kind of world were their creators trying to shape? And why did they choose spheres, a shape so universal, yet so difficult to achieve as their legacy? For all our theories, the truth remains just out of reach. The people who made these spheres vanished long before the Spanish arrived, taking their knowledge with them. Today, the stones sit where they've always been, silent and smooth, as if holding secrets we're not yet ready to understand. And maybe that's the point. Some relics don't exist to give us answers, they exist to remind us how much we still have left to discover. The Iron Pillar of Delhi doesn't just stand, it defies. Rising 23 feet into the air, this ancient column has weathered monsoons, scorching summers, and 16 centuries of history without so much as a flake of rust. To put that in perspective, modern steel bridges require constant maintenance to avoid corrosion, yet this 1600-year-old relic remains as pristine as the day it was forged. How is that possible, and what does its existence tell us about the scientific genius of ancient India? This isn't just a triumph of metallurgy, it's a puzzle wrapped in layers of cultural significance. Erected during the reign of Emperor Chandragupta II in the 4th century, the pillar originally stood at a Vishnu temple complex, its inscription praising the king's victories. But its true marvel lies beneath the surface. The iron is astonishingly pure, with a phosphorus content nearly 10 times higher than modern steel, creating a protective film that shields it from oxidation. Even more intriguing, the pillar wasn't cast or welded. It was forged in a single, massive piece, a technique so advanced, historians once assumed it was impossible for its time. Scientists have spent decades trying to crack its secrets. Some theorize the high phosphorus content came from a unique smelting process, where ancient blacksmiths used organic materials like wood or bone to bind impurities. Others point to the pillar's location in Delhi's dry climate, suggesting the arid air slowed corrosion. But here's the twist: replicas placed in similar conditions still rust, proving there's something extraordinary about the original craftsmanship. Modern engineers have even dubbed its resistance a passive protective film, a term usually reserved for high-tech alloys, not iron forged centuries before the scientific method existed. Yet the pillar's mystery goes beyond chemistry. Local legends claim it grants wishes to those who can wrap their arms around it while standing with their backs to it, a tradition that's left the base polished smooth by countless hands. It's a reminder that this isn't just a scientific marvel, it's a living artifact, a bridge between the empirical and the mystical. What makes the iron pillar so captivating isn't just its defiance of rust, it's the way it challenges our assumptions about ancient technology. We often picture the past as a time of crude tools and simple innovations, but here's a relic that outperforms modern materials. Was it a fluke of metallurgy, or did the artisans of Gupta-era India possess knowledge we're only beginning to understand? Either way, the pillar stands as a silent testament to a civilization that mastered the elements in ways we're still struggling to replicate. And perhaps that's the real lesson here. Sometimes the past holds secrets even our brightest minds can't yet explain. The Terracotta Army doesn't just guard a tomb, it guards the fragile boundary between life and death. In 2170 BCE, Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the man who unified China, ordered the creation of an entire subterranean kingdom to accompany him into eternity. But this wasn't just a collection of statues, it was an act of defiance against mortality itself, a declaration that even in death, power could be preserved. Thousands of life-sized soldiers, each with unique facial features, stand frozen in battle formation, their clay bodies painted in vivid pigments now faded by time. The scale is staggering, over 8,000 figures discovered so far alongside hundreds of chariots and horses, all buried in sprawling underground corridors. But here's what's truly mind-blowing, no two faces are alike. How did ancient artisans achieve such individuality? Archaeologists believe each soldier was modeled after a real person, possibly one of the emperor's actual troops. Craftsmen started with basic body molds, then layered on custom details, different hairstyles reflecting ranks, expressions ranging from youthful determination to grizzled resolve, even subtle variations in ear shapes. Some figures kneel as archers, others stand as infantry, their poses as dynamic as if they might snap to attention at any moment. The level of realism suggests an almost obsessive attention to detail, as if capturing identity itself in clay could cheat death. But the artistry didn't stop there. Originally, every soldier was painted in bold colors: purple tunics, green sashes, black armor, a rainbow army meant to dazzle in the afterlife. Traces of pigment still cling to some, revealing a vibrancy that time hasn't fully erased. Yet the Terracotta Army is more than a masterpiece of sculpture. It's a window into Qin Shi Huang's psyche. This was a ruler so terrified of death, he consumed mercury pills believing they'd grant immortality, ironically poisoning himself in the process. His tomb complex, still mostly unexcavated, is said to contain rivers of mercury and booby traps to thwart grave robbers. The army was just the visible edge of his obsession. But here's the twist: for all his efforts, the warriors failed in their primary mission. Within years of his burial, rebels raided the pits, smashing figures and stealing weapons. The very immortality Qin sought was undermined by the chaos he'd spent his life trying to control. What makes these clay soldiers so mesmerizing isn't just their craftsmanship, it's the paradox they represent. They were built to last forever, yet their fragility mirrors our own. They were meant to conquer death, yet they remind us how fiercely life clings to individuality. Today, as archaeologists painstakingly reassemble shattered fragments, the Terracotta Army stands as a testament not to eternal power, but to something far more human. The breathtaking, heartbreaking lengths will go to be remembered. The Rosetta Stone isn't just a slab of rock, it's a linguistic time machine, a humble piece of black basalt that cracked open the door to an entire civilization's secrets. Discovered in 1799 by French soldiers digging fortifications near the Nile Delta, this unassuming artifact held the key to a mystery that had stumped scholars for centuries: how to read Egyptian hieroglyphs. On its surface, the same decree was carved 3 times, once in formal hieroglyphs, once in Demotic script, and once in ancient Greek. That Greek passage became the cheat sheet that allowed Jean-François Champollion to finally decipher the lost language in 1822, pulling the veil off 3,000 years of history. But here's the twist: the stone wasn't meant to be a codebreaker. It was bureaucratic spam, a royal memo chiseled in 219 BCE to remind Egyptians to pay their taxes and praise their teenage pharaoh Ptolemy V. What makes the Rosetta Stone so extraordinary isn't just its role in unlocking hieroglyphs, it's the sheer accident of its survival. The decree it bears was mass-produced, posted in temples across Egypt like some ancient bulletin. Most were lost to time, but this one survived because it was repurposed as building material, tucked into a wall where Napoleon's troops stumbled upon it. Think about that. A tax notice tossed aside like rubble became the most important artifact in Egyptology, and its message a desperate plea for unity. Ptolemy's kingdom was crumbling, with revolts and famine tearing at its seams. The stone's trilingual text wasn't just practical, it was political, a bid to speak to priests, bureaucrats, and Greek rulers in their own tongues. In that sense, it wasn't just bridging languages, it was trying to stitch a fractured empire back together. Yet the stone's afterlife is just as fascinating as its creation. After Napoleon's defeat, it landed in British hands under the Treaty of Alexandria, where it's remained ever since, a fact that still sparks tension. Egypt has demanded its return for decades, arguing it's a looted treasure. The British Museum counters that its global accessibility makes it a shared human heritage. This debate raises uncomfortable questions: who really owns the past? Can an object transcend nationalism when it's become a universal symbol of discovery? The Rosetta Stone's legacy stretches far beyond archaeology. Its name is now shorthand for any key to decoding complexity, from software to genetics. But perhaps its greatest lesson is about the power of perspective. For centuries, hieroglyphs were dismissed as mystical symbols, not real writing. It took a trilingual tax form to prove that ancient Egyptians were telling stories, keeping records, joking, grieving, just like us. The stone didn't just translate a dead language. It reminded us that every culture, no matter how distant, is speaking if we're willing to listen. And that's the real magic. Sometimes history's most mundane artifacts hold the most extraordinary truth. The Dead Sea Scrolls aren't just ancient manuscripts, they're a time capsule of faith, rebellion, and the desperate act of preservation. In 1947, a Bedouin shepherd tossing rocks into a cave near the Dead Sea heard the sound of shattering pottery, uncovering what would become the most significant archaeological discovery of the 20th century. Inside those dusty jars lay nearly 1,000 parchment and papyrus texts, some over 2,000 years old, including the earliest known copies of the Hebrew Bible. But here's what's truly astonishing. These weren't just religious texts, they were a library of dissent, hidden during one of the most turbulent periods in Jewish history, the Roman occupation of Judea. Who went to such lengths to protect these writings? The leading theory points to the Essenes, a radical Jewish sect that broke away from mainstream Judaism, disgusted by what they saw as corruption in the temple. These weren't just monks copying scripture, they were revolutionaries of the spirit, living in the harsh desert wilderness of Qumran, where the scrolls were found. Their writings reveal a community obsessed with purity, awaiting an apocalyptic war between the sons of light and sons of darkness. Some scrolls even contain detailed battle plans for this holy war, complete with trumpet signals and troop formations. Yet amidst these fiery visions, there's something tender: the painstaking care with which each scroll was copied, some on parchment so thin you could see sunlight through it. But the Essene connection isn't airtight. Recent archaeological work suggests the caves might have been a regional safe deposit box where multiple groups, not just the Essenes, hid their most precious texts as Roman legions crushed the Jewish revolt in 70 CE. Imagine the scene: scribes wrapping sacred scrolls in linen, sealing them in jars, and whispering prayers as they tucked them into desert caves, hoping someday someone would understand their worth. The scrolls' impact on religious scholarship can't be overstated. Before their discovery, the oldest complete Hebrew Bible dated to the 10th century. Suddenly, scholars had texts 1,000 years older, revealing how little the core scriptures had changed over millennia, a revelation that silenced some skeptics. Yet other scrolls complicated the narrative, like the Book of Enoch, which didn't make it into the final Bible, or the Copper Scroll, listing buried treasure that's never been found. These outliers remind us that history is written by the victors, but sometimes the voices of the fringe survive in the cracks. What makes the Dead Sea Scrolls so mesmerizing isn't just their age or their text, it's how they embody the human struggle to preserve meaning against the tides of time and tyranny. They weren't meant for us, they were hidden in fear, only to be found by accident 2,000 years later, their message still resonant. In that way, they're more than relics, they're proof that ideas can outlast empires, that faith can endure even when buried in darkness. And perhaps that's the greatest miracle of all, not that they survived, but that they're still speaking to us across the centuries. The Moai of Easter Island stand sentinel over one of the most remote places on Earth, their stone gazes fixed on horizons both real and imagined. Carved from compressed volcanic ash between 1200 and 1600 CE, these towering figures average 13 feet tall and weigh a staggering 14 tons each, with the largest unfinished moai stretching 69 feet and tipping the scales at 270 tons. But here's what's truly mind-bending. This wasn't just art. It was an act of defiance against isolation itself. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, is a speck of land 2,300 miles from the nearest continent, a place where survival was never guaranteed. Yet amidst this fragility, the Rapa Nui people didn't just endure, they created. How did they move these colossal statues without wheels, without draft animals, without even trees to serve as rollers? The answer lies in the island's own mythos. Oral traditions speak of the Moai walking to their ceremonial platforms, led by priests or divine power. For years, scholars dismissed this as fantasy until experiments proved it might be literal. By rocking the statues side to side with ropes, teams could simulate a shuffling gait, covering distances of several miles a day. It's a technique mirrored in the statue's design. Their slightly forward-leaning posture and curved bases made them perfect for this rhythmic dance across the land. But the real marvel isn't just the how, it's the why. These weren't mere decorations. Each Moai represented a deified ancestor, their backs turned to the sea as they watched over villages, channeling spiritual energy, or mana to protect the living. The red stone topknots crowning some statues, not hats as once assumed, but sacred hair bundles, a symbol of status and power. Yet the Moai story takes a dark turn. As resources dwindled, possibly due to deforestation from transporting the statues, clans toppled rivals Moai in waves of iconoclasm. The very symbols meant to ensure survival became casualties of a society pushed to its limits. What makes the Moai unforgettable isn't just their scale or mystery, it's what they reveal about the human condition. In a place where every calorie of energy counted, where the nearest neighbors were generations of seabirds, the Rapa Nui chose to carve their legacy in stone. They could have focused solely on survival. Instead, they reached for immortality. Today, as climate change threatens the island's coastline, the Moai stand as both warning and inspiration, a testament to what we're capable of and what we risk when we confuse monuments with meaning. Their silent faces ask us the same question they've asked for centuries, not how we'll be remembered, but why we need to be. The lost crown jewels of Ireland weren't just dazzling gemstones. They were the very embodiment of a nation's pride, only to vanish into thin air under circumstances so bizarre they'd feel at home in a heist novel. Crafted in the 17th century for the Order of St. Patrick, this regalia included a diamond-studded star and an ornate badge, all centered around a massive Brazilian gem known as the Regal Diamond. But in July 1907, when a safe in Dublin Castle was opened for a routine inspection, the unthinkable happened. The jewels were gone, not stolen in a daring midnight raid, not seized by revolutionaries, just Missing, the safe showed no signs of forced entry, the keys were supposedly secure, and yet Ireland's crown jewels had evaporated into history. So what really happened? And why does their disappearance still haunt us over a century later? At the heart of this mystery lies a web of scandal and political tension. Ireland in 1907 was a powder keg of nationalist fervor, with growing demands for independence from British rule. The jewels, those symbols of Irish heritage, were also deeply tied to the British monarchy, making them a target for both thieves and ideologues. Suspicion immediately fell on Sir Arthur Vickers, the Ulster King of Arms, and the man responsible for safeguarding the regalia. Vickers was known for his lax security habits, even reportedly showing the jewels off at parties. But here's where things get murky. The investigation was botched from the start. Key witnesses weren't questioned, evidence vanished, and rumors swirled of a cover-up reaching the highest levels of British government. Some whispered that Vickers was framed to protect someone far more powerful, perhaps even a member of the royal household. Then there's the wildcard theory. The jewels weren't stolen at all, but destroyed. One persistent story claims they were smuggled to England and melted down to prevent their use as a rallying symbol for Irish rebels. After all, a crown jewel can't inspire a revolution if it no longer exists. Others believe they were hidden somewhere in Ireland, waiting to be rediscovered. A treasure buried in plain sight, like the fabled gold of the Tuatha De Danann. Over the years, amateur sleuths have scoured Dublin Castle's basements, decoded cryptic letters, and even followed maps drawn from old tavern rumors. All have come up empty. What makes this disappearance so captivating isn't just the lost wealth, it's what the jewels represented. Their fate mirrors Ireland's own turbulent journey, a nation struggling to reclaim its identity from colonial shadows. Were they pawns in a political game, casualties of carelessness, or are they still out there, hidden in some forgotten corner, waiting for the right moment to resurface? The truth may never be known, but one thing's certain: the story of Ireland's lost crown jewels isn't just about what was taken, it's about what was left behind. A mystery without an ending, a relic without a home, and a reminder that sometimes the most powerful symbols are the ones we can no longer see. From sacred objects to technological marvels, these relics aren't just remnants of the past. They're mirrors reflecting humanity's deepest obsessions, fears, and triumphs. Take the Antikythera Mechanism, a device so advanced it rewrote our understanding of ancient ingenuity, or the Voynich Manuscript, its pages a maddening puzzle that refuses to surrender its secrets. Each artifact whispers the same tantalizing question: how much of history have we gotten wrong? These objects don't just fill museums, they shatter assumptions, proving that the past was far more complex, more inventive, and more mysterious than we often give it credit for. What's truly remarkable isn't just the craftsmanship or the stories behind these relics. It's how they bridge the gap between eras, making the distant past feel viscerally alive. Holding a medieval key or standing before the Nazca Lines, you're not just observing history, you're touching the same objects, walking the same paths as people who lived centuries or even millennia ago. That connection is electric. It's why a rusted sword or a faded scroll can grip our imaginations tighter than any textbook. These relics aren't static, they're conversation starters, inviting us to debate, reinterpret, and sometimes even rewrite the narratives we thought we knew. And then there's the thrill of the unsolved. For every artifact we've deciphered, countless others like the Phaistos Disc or the Dropa Stones defy explanation, teasing us with the possibility that some secrets are meant to stay buried. That tension between knowing and not knowing is what keeps archaeologists, historians, and amateur sleuths digging, scanning, and theorizing. It's not just about solving puzzles, it's about the joy of the hunt, the tantalizing idea that the next big discovery could be lying in a forgotten attic or beneath a desert dune, waiting to append everything we thought we understood. Perhaps the most profound lesson these relics teach us is humility. The Iron Pillar of Delhi mocks our modern arrogance with its rust-resistant perfection, while the Terracotta Army reminds us that even the mightiest rulers couldn't cheat death, no matter how many clay soldiers they commissioned. These objects force us to confront how little we truly know and how much we still have to learn. They're not just artifacts, they're invitations to keep questioning, keep exploring, and stay curious. So what's next with every technological leap? From ground-penetrating radar to AI-powered decryption, we're unlocking new ways to peer into the past. Who's to say what relics might emerge from the shadows tomorrow? A lost gospel buried in a desert monastery, a sunken city hiding advanced tools we never knew existed. The search never really ends, and that's the beauty of it. These relics aren't just fragments of history, they're portals endlessly inviting us to step through and discover what's on the other side. The past isn't settled, it's alive, shifting, and always ready to surprise